Good morning, Alan.
Good evening, Leanne.
How's your day been?
My day's been very good. It's now 4:30 where I am. It's 84 degrees. The pool is
Beautiful.
working well. So things are good. I cannot complain.
That's great. That's great news. Look, I'm
How are
feeling a
you?
bit sad because I'm great because it's 6:30 in the morning. It stopped raining here. It's been raining all week. So the dogs are happy. I'm happy. Got my coffee now. On live streaming with you. Life is great. I don't know if the day is going to get worse after this, 'cause it's pretty damn good right now. I am a bit sad though that the Olympics are over. Did you enjoy watching the Olympics?
Well, I did. I mean, I learned a lot in terms of, I learned a lot in terms of excellent athletes. Australia, I thought, is punching way above its weight. I mean, that is a great compliment.
Yeah,
You
thank
folks
you.
do good, especially the water. My goodness! And in case you ever have to swim away from the island, you'll be in especially good shape. I think that's good. But this subjective judging about a tenth of a point in gymnastics, or what do they call it in the pool now? Synchronized, I don't know, swimming, ballet swimming.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Now the bronze medal shifting back and forth. I want to tell you a quick story. Years ago in the Olympics, the Harvard rowing crew came in last. And so they went to the coach and they said, "How's it feel to come in last?" He said, "What's wrong with being the 8th best in the world?" This is a good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
And thank you for acknowledging our contribution to the games. And swimming is it's totally part of our DNA. Like, everyone gets taught how to swim when they're younger. There's a whole community around it. We put a lot of effort and energy into our swim teams. I just want to share the medal tally. I was looking at it just earlier, and I think you're right around the punching above our weight. I mean, we've got Japan, like Republic of China, like 1.2 billion people, US 330 million people, little old Australia 26 million.
Yeah, but you
Being the
have
host
you
nation.
have 47 million kangaroos, though. I mean, let's be fair.
And a breakdancer that incorporates kangaroo moves. Have you seen the breakdancing footage?
Of what?
Oh, good. That's good to know. Okay, I'm going to send you a link afterwards. There's been an Australian breakdancer that's made headlines. They've mocked her and Jimmy Fallon. It was quite funny. Her routine was interesting.
Is this the woman who was upset that we hit cowbells? And there was an
No.
Australian swimmer who was a sore winner. And she said, what was it like, the Australian interviewer said, to beat the United States? She said, "I can't tell you how wonderful it was, because they hit cowbells when we're out there in the pool. They hit cowbells. And then you hit USA, USA. She said, "It's obnoxious." And so I did a podcast about the fact that she's a sore winner. And during the podcast, in the background, guess what you can hear? Cowbells.
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 How did that? Did you edit that in afterwards? Do you happen to play cowbells all through the day and chant USA? What's going on there?
I have cowbells right here at my beck and call. Whatever I need, I have. Nothing is phony here.
USA.
We just take the thing. Yes.
Oh, so funny. I actually had a consultant friend that because we all work from home or co-working spaces, but whenever she made a sale, got a client, she'd actually ring her own bell at home just to acknowledge that. So, but yeah, I'm glad. It's actually nice to hear that you haven't seen the breakdancing footage. It's been big news here. She's getting trolled. It's very funny, and I thought, this is hilarious. It'll end in a day. People will stop talking about it. But some of the comments are quite awful and saying, look, she deserves all of this mockery. And so she's pretty much laying a low profile now.
Well, that's a shame.
It is a shame. And just one more thing on that. I mean, like, people are saying, "Oh, she wasted taxpayer dollars," and they're going really, really hard on her, but they're not actually facing the politicians who are wasting a hell of a lot more. And so I think it's really unfair.
I think politicians should run for office by competing. I think that they, in hot air. I mean, they should run around a track or swim in a pool or throw a shot put, or maybe catch a javelin. I think these would be legitimate things.
Catch a javelin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Catch a javelin. That's fascinating.
Javelin catching. I mean,
javelin catching. So funny. I'm actually trying to figure out ways I can compete in the 2032 Olympics, and I think Olympic shooting might be easy. I mean, for someone that is aging, I think I'll be 48, 49 around then. I think I could take up some very physical shooting.
I would enter you if I were coaching. I would enter you in the cheerfulness contest. I think you're good for at least a silver, maybe a gold. Yeah.
That's huge. Thank you. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Alan. And if you're joining us on the live stream, it's great to have you here. Let us know in the comments where you're jumping in from. And today's topic is the illusion of work-life balance. Now, the illusion is the interesting part of this. Why do you think it is an illusion, this whole concept of balancing work and life?
Well, it's like saying upper body, lower body configuration. I mean, you have one body, you have one life, for God's sake. And I mean, what's more, is it 50-50? Is it 90-10? It all depends. So as you know, I just came back from Nantucket, where we go every year. Beautiful island here, which I'm, I might swim to just to show you. And uh, I don't have any problem taking business calls on the beach. I don't care. Just like here where I'm sitting, my pool is about 50 yards away. And I have no problem in the middle of a weekday going out there in the pool or smoking a cigar, playing with the dogs, doesn't matter. And so we have to be more flexible in that. My wife will often, if we're on a vacation on an island someplace, my wife will come down to the pool around 10:30. I go out about 8 o'clock down to the beach. My wife will say, have you paid for the vacation yet? Meaning the calls I'm taking on the beach. People who leave a company and become refugees and go out on their own often have a worse boss than they had before. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And I think you inherit some of those bad practices. Like I know when I left my organization, the first thing I thought I had to work like 40, 50 hours a day in my own business. And you're like, what am I actually doing? Like what am I creating? And I realized I'm not much. And so I try to concentrate my time in like the first part of the day and try to win the day very early on so I can kind of chill out.
People have OCD about business. They place guilt on themselves because they think if I am awake, I should be working. I'm letting people down. I should be working. And the fact is, we make money and we grow our business by working smart, not hard. So I made a list here. I actually prepared for this somewhat. Don't tell.
No way. I've never seen you do this.
I have a lot
of
of
you just like ripped everything.
This comes from my own work, but I have a terrible short-term memory. There are 7 parts of life balance to me. And it's mental, emotional, physical, social, financial, psychological, and recreational. Parse that any way you like. Change it. I don't care. But the fact is, that's my list. And the fact is, you should live a life that fulfills those things. So what your work or career or calling is contributes to that. But recreation and entertainment and relationships and love and so forth contribute to that. So some kind of arbitrary life balance is nuts. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I'd love to get that list from you and we can put it in the show notes for this episode. If you can send those top 7 things over. We've got Dee Dee that's joining us from Silicon Valley. Great to have you here, Dee Dee. Let us know your thoughts on work-life balance and what you prioritize as well. I think, Ellen, like you talk about your trip to Nantucket and taking a phone call on the beach. I was in Thailand last year. I had a few things to run, like a webinar and really, it was terrible. Like through the trip, I'm just waiting to run this damn webinar. Then I can officially go on holidays. Like I was just waiting to run this thing and get it over and done with. And even when I went to Broome in Western Australia, I had a couple of things on while I was there. It kind of just got in the way of me relaxing. What is going on there?
Well, it's guilt, it's esteem. And it's the fact that you feel that, you owe something to work or you're not valid. You're not putting forth your best effort. You deserve to fail. And that's just crazy because the more rested you are and the more at peace you are, the more comfortable you are in your own skin, the more productive you are. Mm-hmm. And so I've got no problem on a Saturday if I have a good idea writing an article or writing one of my columns. I've got no problem just taking off on Thursday, doing nothing. So that's how we have to live our lives. And I think that this OCD I'm talking about, the obsession is something we can't stop thinking about, and compulsion is something we can't stop doing, and work becomes OCD to us, and we need to knock that the hell off because as entrepreneurs we're taking tremendous risk. If you're not reaping a reward of self-satisfaction and control and so forth, then that's not a good equation.
Yeah, I was working with a group the other week and we were talking about like the risk you take as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur. Like you don't have the certainty of that paycheck. And so that's the balance you take, whether those in organizations, they're maximizing for certainty, knowing that they've got what do they call it? The golden handcuffs that, they'll get paid every week. So is it possible for people within companies that work for other people to have, we're not going to talk about the balance, but have a really great life, even though there's constraints that they work within?
Yes, because everyone has more control than they think they do, no matter what they're doing. Independent, work for a company, I don't care. You have more control than you think. The trouble is people are scared to exercise it. So if you're working in a large organization, and most of my early career was consulting solely with large organizations. So I met a lot of these people. some of them work like they're in prison. They slog to work in the morning, they do their work, they take a break, they have an hour for lunch, a little break in the afternoon, and home they go. It's no different from prison life. So that ain't healthy. But some people carve out their own being there because they are contributing, they have new ideas, they have the right relationships with others, they know how to work with a boss, they know how to work with colleagues. And so they carve out sort of a nice nest for themselves, and that makes sense too. But you have to resist. You have to resist taking work home. You have to resist working in the evening unless there's an offset, which is, you have the flexibility to take Friday morning off. I mean, when I got to undergraduate school, I was amazed that I could create my own schedule. And so I quickly put together a schedule where I never went to school on Friday. So I had a 3-day weekend. I said, boy, this is what life is like. I'm going to start to take Thursdays off too, And so we all have more control than we think. We don't exercise it because we feel guilty.
Yeah, it's so true. And I remember doing the same at university. Is like, oh, this is a full-time course. And I basically got Monday and Tuesday, just packed them out full days. And then, pretty much had Wednesday, Thursday off. You'd think I'd study in those days. I didn't. I wish I did, but no, not really. I mean, I think it's been pretty good life without investing all that time in study. Dee Dee shares, I love my work so much. It is recreation, love, and joy. I'm not counting my minutes. I'm counting my blessings. That's a really great way to live, Dee Dee. So just further to what you said, Alan, around working in an organization and we think we're in our own prison, there's still like some pushback I get from clients that say, yeah, but my manager is micromanaging me. They're over my shoulder. They want to make sure I'm here, till the end of the day and that I'm online all the time. What can they do to increase their agency?
Go back to my prison analogy. Your boss is not a corrections officer in prison. Your boss is not the warden. And so you have to say to your boss, look, you're micromanaging me. Let me give you an example. Here's social proof. All right. You keep returning memos to me because you want these things changed, but those are items of taste. They don't make any difference in the power of the memo. And so unless you want to write the memo for your taste, leave it to me. You have to talk back like that. I had a consulting assignment at Calgon, and the president says the director of human resources is not getting the job done. So go talk to him. So I find out, what are you doing? He says, well, I spend the first 2 hours every morning answering the president's requests. He says, then I get back to my work, but I've lost 2 hours. I'm afraid not to answer the president's requests. And so I don't get as much work done. I said, do you realize that when you answer his requests like that, spending 2 hours every day, he thinks it's no problem for you. And so you're complying with him, but he thinks it's no problem. What you need to do is go to him and say, I'm not getting my job done because you give me 2 hours of things I have to respond to every day. You got to stop that. He says, maybe you can tell him that. I said, I will if you want to get fired. So, I mean, stand up, be an adult. So I think it's a chronic problem.
I do. I think it's a lot of fear as well. And I think I was lucky enough to work for an organization. I wouldn't even call it an organization. It was pretty much a grown-up startup. It was very Wild West. But my boss was the founder, and it was basically the whole philosophy around it was seek forgiveness, not permission. So I was so lucky to have that moment when I was 25 that gave me a bit of that boldness and, got me to sort of question everything. And I think a lot of people, if you work in sort of corporations, there's big org structures and it's all about kind of conformity, it's tough to break away from that. And that's when you really do need external help, I think.
Well, normative pressure is a terrible thing. I mean, it can be very positive, but it can often be a very terrible thing. And this pressure to conform. Now, you can tell me here, I mean, as you know, I've been to Australia 19 times. I started going in the 70s. And it was explained to me in detail by Australians about this tall poppy syndrome. And occasionally an Australian will tell me that doesn't exist. But it's a 10-to-1 ratio. 10 people tell me it does exist very well, it does, it doesn't. And so that's a normative pressure there to conform to a certain level of performance, a certain level of wealth, a certain level of behavior. That doesn't exist here, really, and at least not to that degree. Yeah. And so the normative pressure is tough, and you've got to be willing to stand tall against the wind.
Yeah, it's funny because like the only time, I've had standing ovations in the US. I remember speaking there in 2019, and first time I got a standing ovation. just because the American audience is so like they want to celebrate. I don't personally don't believe there's tall poppy syndrome, but you're right, it is a 10-to-1 ratio. But I also don't believe there's a glass ceiling either. Like I could choose to believe that, but how's that going to help me? So I choose not to believe that.
Yeah. In the United States, standing ovations have become a de rigueur. In other words, every standing. In Australia, nobody gets a standing ovation. I was on a speaking tour in Australia, and my last speech was in Sydney. And I had a great group, and I was, in very good spirits. But I told them that I felt this affinity toward Australia because my father fought in New Guinea. He was a paratrooper in New Guinea defending Australia. And I said, I think that's why I love coming here so much, Yeah. And I had a standing ovation. I had to come back on stage once. I came back on stage a second time. They kept applauding. And then I went back and I said to my wife, come on, we're leaving. And we walked out of the building. It was one of the most moving experiences of my life because it wasn't something that Australians feel they have to do. Yeah. So when I say normative pressure has its downside, it's great to get a standing ovation in the United States, but you also know it's tough not to get one at times, right? Just the opposite in Australia.
Yeah. Oh, you're bruising my ego now. I was like, really holding that moment as a career highlight in the US, getting that standing ovation. But yeah, I mean, honestly, and thank you. It's like we do thank your father for his service. The fact that we are free is something that I think we take for granted often. And so it's nice to remember like the sacrifices that were made during that time.
Yeah, well, I think that, to me, the reason I love Australia so much is that you all remind me of New Yorkers. I mean, you speak a little funny, but you're just like New Yorkers. And everything's out in the open. It's bold and it's honest and and the thing is, it's never personal. Well, rarely is it personal. In other words, you can have an argument at a business meeting, talk about life balance, and then somebody says, okay, we're done. Let's have a beer. Mm. And boom, you're beyond that. And too many times in the United States, people hold grudges.
Yeah.
I don't think that's as common in Australia. I think people, they say, okay, that was business. Now let's get on with our lives.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it is shifting the other way in terms of people holding on to grudges, but I hope that's not the case. And sometimes when you're in your own environment, you don't recognize that as a strength. I just want to acknowledge Dee Dee here. She took 30 minutes ago to go to the coast and see the whales. She could have done that, but she chose to stay here with us. Thank you, Dee Dee.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's right. Yeah. And we're not endangered.
No. And I was actually coasting, talking about work-life balance. I had a week off last week for a friend's 40th, and we were cruising up the Whitsunday coast on this beautiful boat. We saw whales every day. It got to a point where another whale would be there and no one would even actually get up and look at it because we were so accustomed to seeing them. And if you are joining us live, let us know if you have any questions or comments regarding work-life balance. I guess I have a quick question for you, Alan. It seems like you're always on. Like I can send you an email and you just respond immediately and you're in the forums. Like you're kind of omnipresent. Are you always on?
Well, I don't think I'm always on, but I am highly responsive. And there's a difference between being available and responsive. And in this modern age, being available is impossible. I mean, because otherwise, with this in our pockets, right? We'd constantly be interrupted and we couldn't get things done. And too many people are slaves to their cell phones, and that's not a healthy life balance. Mm-hmm. But I'm highly responsive. And so if you say to me, I'd like your comment on this, I give you my comment on that. And if I respond within an hour or two, during my business hours, that's pretty good. So, it's really a question of loving what you do. And so I think one of the issues that maybe we should make more obvious here is that you really don't get too concerned about work-life balance when you have a calling and you love what you do, because it's not really work, it's fulfillment. And so, I put out Monday morning memo, and it's one of the few things I don't prepare in advance. I usually do it on Sunday, see what's doing. But it's a labor of love. I love writing Monday morning memo, and so I do it on Sunday. Who cares? I'm not going to do it during, let's say, a football game or during the Olympics, but I'll do it when there's another time to do it. So there's a real question about being engaged in things you're passionate about.
And I guess I think our life partners, Maria, she's fine with you on Sundays, and like my husband Chris is fine with that too. But I kind of feel like, I've got this idea, I'm just going to head out, and rather than just balancing that can be sometimes I don't mind balancing my own time, but when it impacts other people, I think I have to be a bit more cautious around that.
Well, I don't know how you feel about this, but my feeling about, I'm married 56 years a week ago.
Congrats. Yeah,
And
great.
my feeling about a long-term marriage is that my wife has interests that I'm not interested in, and I have interests that she's not interested in, and then we have interests that both of us are interested in.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key. So we give each other time and permission to pursue our own interests, but we make sure that we participate fully in our own shared interests. And I think that's the key to balance.
Yeah, that's really healthy. Now, I did have this prompt around, how has technology blurred the lines between work and life? And you took out your phone and you said, we're always sort of with this device. There's a lot of resilience and mental health workers that, like, their advice is, like, when you wake up in the morning, don't check your phone straight away. But I do, like, I honestly do. I check I just want to see, like, is there anything that's coming overnight that I need to pay attention to? And it doesn't actually, I don't think it affects me, like, at a conscious level. Do you do the same thing, or do you wait, like, and have your little morning routine and then check your phone and emails?
First thing I do in the mornings is I get up and sort of wake myself up. And either I'll put on my workout clothes and I go to the gym. I do that 3 days a week. The other 4 days a week, I put on different clothes and I take the dogs for coffee. And I get coffee and come home. The dogs get biscuits, and then when I'm home, I'll have breakfast. And then I'll look at my email and I'll check messages and things like that. So it's about an hour or 90 minutes after I'm up on either occasion, because I don't need bad news as soon as I get up. And sometimes we have bad news in email. So for me, that works. But I'll tell you something, and I think you're like this too in a manner. I want to get everything cleaned up by noon. A lot of times, all my writing and everything is done by about 7:30, 8 o'clock. But by noon, I want all my coaching calls done and everything else. Now, there are exceptions, right? If I'm talking to somebody in Australia, I'm doing it at 4 p.m., 5 p.m. my time. But beside those exceptions, I want my afternoons free, not so that I can go run around entertaining myself, but because that gives me creative time.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I just don't want things to linger on, and that's why I love working with clients in the US, because I can pretty much win the day by 8 o'clock in the morning. Whereas with Europe, it's you're back on at 5 o'clock and having to sort of reset with that too. So I think really the conversation isn't around the, like, work-life balance. It really is about what it takes to create a great life. And are there any sort of, before we move on to sharing what you're up to and any events, what do you think with this prompt? What does it take to create a great life?
Well, I'm going to tell you. I asked myself the same question. We did not prepare this, okay? But I was making some notes while I was sitting waiting for this to go on. I think for a great life, you need self-discipline. You need personal metrics. You can't go by other people's metrics. You need resilience, bounce forward. You need perspective, which I think is found in humor. Put things in perspective. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You need critical thinking skills so you can cut through things quickly and accurately. You need courage, or call it fearlessness. You can't have guilt. And finally, you need selective hearing. And by selective hearing, I mean, you can't just listen to anybody, The speaker on the stage who's, divorced twice, has a drinking habit, is a chain smoker, and is overweight and tells you to take control of your life, please.
I haven't heard that. Selective hearing. I think that's really a really special standout phrase in terms of who do you pay attention to and what do you actually consume. It really can affect how you feel. I love that. I think I'd love you to work something up on that. Okay, and I'll just have to decide whether I listen to it or not. But upcoming events, what have you got on, Alan?
I want to tell everybody that on October 31st in the US, which is Halloween here, appropriately, I'm going to be in Las Vegas. And I'm doing a session on how to be extemporaneous. Now, it might sound funny to be prepared to be extemporaneous, but I can teach you how to do that. And it's very important because when you're in the moment, that's where the real power is. And so if you watch A Minute with Alan in this coming week, there'll be a session, there'll be one of my minutes on how to be extemporaneous. But I'm going to expand that for a full day in Vegas. And if you can be there, happy to see you.
Yeah, and I'm going to be there. So I'm really excited. I'm flying all the way over. And then the day before, I'm hosting a session on maximizing your return on luck, of course, in the lucky city, which is Vegas. And on 3rd of September, I'm doing a really great event with an author, Michael Bungay Stanier. He's the person he's the one that said to me, you need to read $1 Million Consulting all those years ago. So full circle moment. We're doing a big event together. We've got, I think, 150 people on a rooftop bar, but we've got like 20 seats left.
Wow.
Dee wants to know, in Vegas, do we wear costumes for Halloween?
You are free to wear costumes. I would prefer something that makes you look like an aggressive leopard.
Aggressive leopard. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't know where that came from. Alan, it's always a joy doing this. And I think part of the joy for me is learning to speak spontaneously with you, right? We're going live. Like there's no other challenge that can sort of really bring that out. So cheers to you. And
Cheers
thanks
to
again
you.
for a great episode.
Thanks, everyone.